I want to pick up with what I didn't get to yesterday. And that is this question. It's an important question, and don't just blow it off. Have miracles somehow expired? Did they somehow fit an earlier generation? And most of you intuitively say, no, miracles are still going on today. I heard stories. I read something on the internet. Well, that proves it. So, of course, God is still doing miracles today. Well, don't just simply answer the question. Let me point something out to you. If you were to take all the miracles in the Bible, and you took, they were like checker pieces. Anyone play checkers? And you took the checker pieces and you spread them across a board. And one side of the board was time, and the other side of the board was geography. The miracles that you place from biblical history, I'm not talking about today, from biblical history, the miracles you place would not look like the start of a checkerboard game when everything is even. It would look like the middle of the game, when some are clumped up over here and some are stacked up over there. You have miracles throughout biblical history, but they come kind of in clusters, particularly around Moses, around Elijah, and around the apostles. I'm not saying that miracles don't happen throughout biblical history or modern history, but I just want to be realistic with the biblical data that there are clumps and clusters of miracles, primarily at periods of new revelations. That's what you would expect. God entering to the world to validate the message that He's preaching. So having said that, let me introduce you to a verse of Scripture. The only verse of Scripture that talks about the passing away of the miraculous. Most of you probably already know that we are talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 13. What you need to know about this text is that it's part of a larger argument, particularly how to do church. So if you have a Bible, we are going to get to Acts 2 today. Boy, I hope so. But we have to get this little bit of business out of the way. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This, as you know, is the chapter on love. And so whatever else we do with this text, we have to understand he's talking about the importance, predominance, and permanence of love. Now, I find this interesting, Lily, because I know that you're dating Josh, and you guys are just like stupid in love. And if I were to read this chapter to you, love is patient, love is kind, your heart would go pitter-patter. Oh, I love Josh. Yeah. How many of you, has anyone just broke up with a guy? Anyone admit that? Or broke up with a girl? You did? You just broke up with a guy? Okay. Now let me read this text to you. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not keep an account of wrong suffered. When she hears it, she just goes, oh. And you know when we usually read this? Weddings, yeah. Like what two people dressed up in a tux and a white dress need this? It's like, love is patient. Oh, yeah, I'm so patient with you. You know where you really need to read this? In a divorce court. And in fact, this church is going through a divorce, one member against another, metaphorically. They've got lawsuits going on. Some are getting drunk. The rich are glutting themselves at the Eucharist meal, and the poor are, going hungry. These people were really fighting. So it's more, this text is really more like Anna's situation than Lilia's situation. And when I say love is patient, love is kind, love endures, I don't want you to get a warm, fuzzy feeling. I want you to think about the last time you broke up with someone and really were at odds. That person in the dorm that runs around banging on doors at 2 a.m. or playing their music too loud or going and giving people wedgies, that's the person, I'm speaking to the guys, hopefully not to the women, that's the person that you need to love like this. Now, in the midst of that discussion of how valuable love is, he says these words, chapter 13, verse 8, love never fails. Where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there's knowledge, it will pass away. By the way, the first word, cease and pass away, same Greek word. But the middle word is a different Greek word. It's just for variation. It will cease, it will be done away with, it will stop. There's going to come a time when we don't need prophecy, when we don't need tongues, when we don't need knowledge. When, pray tell, is that time? Is it now? Is it sometime in the past? Sometime in the future? Verse 9, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. So the reason that these supernatural gifts are going to cease, it has something to do with knowledge, because we have imperfect knowledge, partial knowledge. When here's verse 10, here's the kicker. When the perfect comes, or when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. Now, let's talk about this. When does the perfect come? Well, I guess in order to know when the perfect comes, you'd have to know what the perfect is. Jessica. The second coming. Now, actually, I lost my place. That it sounds like this. Why do you say the second coming?
It's because it says when the perfection comes.
So something is coming. By the way, I'm glad you didn't say Jesus, because the word perfect in the Greek language is neuter, not masculine. So it doesn't refer to the masculine person Jesus, but it could refer to, the Greek word is eschaton, the end of time. So that's a valid assumption. Now, before I deal with the assumption, let me talk about the implications of your assumption, Jessica. If it is the end of time, are tongues active today? Yeah. Has the end come? No. So tongues are still active. Prophecy still active. And supernatural knowledge, I assume it's supernatural knowledge. It just says knowledge, but it's in the context of these other supernatural gifts, like knowledge from God, Spirit of God kind of thing. Contextually, I want to show you why many people believe that you're right. If we read on, it says in verse 11, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish things behind me. Verse 12. But now we see a poor reflection in a mirror. I've actually seen dozens of these mirrors. They found them in archaeological sites. They're made of brass.